Hi everyone. In this video, we shall solve a very common problem of promoting multiple rows as headers using Power Query to get output in this format. So this is the expected output that we wish to generate, and this is the messy data that we have now. And these are the double headers that we wish to promote and get the output in this format. So this video is inspired from yesterday's post by Brian Julius Sir on LinkedIn. In his post, he has proposed an amazing solution using table.transpose function in Power Query. But then I came across his other post in which he has explained implications of using transpose function and how it can result in loss of data. So do check out both of these posts. I will attach the link of these posts in the comment section below, and make sure you follow him on LinkedIn for his insightful post on business intelligence, data and AI. So in this video, we shall solve the same problem that Brian sir has discussed in this video, and I have used the same data as well. So we shall try to solve that problem, but without using transpose function. So let's see how we can achieve this. So first of all, what we will do, we will take this data to Power Query editor. So we will go to data tab, get data from file from Excel workbook. And this is the workbook that we are currently working in. So let's click on import. And we only want this input sheet, so we will click on transform data. Right, so we can remove this change type step, and we want to transform this table. So before cleaning this data, let's try to understand that why we are against using table.transform function. So let's say this is the table that we wish to transform, and these are the values in the first column. Now when we go to transform tab and click on this transpose option, so what has happened here, that rows have been converted into columns and columns have been converted into rows. So if we see the previous table that we transposed, these were the column values, right? These were the column 1 values, and now they have become the values of the first row. So rows have converted into columns and columns have converted into rows. Now what is the problem with this? In most of the cases when we receive the data, we have many rows and we have few columns. So let's say we have n columns in our data and we have over a million rows in our data. Now when we transpose, what will happen? There will be a million columns and there will be 10 rows only. Now Power Query cannot handle more than 16 to 17,000 columns of data. So that's the issue with using this function table.transpose, that it could result in loss of data. And that is what is also explained by Brian Julius sir in his post. So you must check out that post in the comment section. Now we know that we don't have to use table.transpose function. So let us remove this step from here, and we have this as our input table. Now, as our first step of cleaning this data, what we will do, we will first of all identify that from the top, which are the rows, how many number of rows comprise of the header row. So if we see here in this data, the first row and the second row comprise of the header row, right? So what we will do, we will separate the header rows with rest of the rows. So what we will do, we know that first two rows comprise of the header rows. So what we will use table split at, right? Table dot split at. And what it will do, basically it will take a table as input. So input sheet is our table, the previous step is our table, and the count is 2 because we want to split the first two rows with rest of the rows. So we will close the bracket here, and we got this as a result. So we have got a list of tables where the first table consists of the first two rows and the second table consists of the rest of the rows, right? Then we could refer to, let's say, this particular table to format the headers that we have, and then we could format these separately. So this is the idea, main idea that we are going to use. So what we will do, we will create another step, and there we will refer to only the header rows. So for that, we will refer to the first table in the list, and for that we will use zero indexing here, and we got the first table from that list, that is the header rows that we have here. So now our next step will be to combine the values from these rows together so that we get only a single row as header, right? So what we will do now, that we will create a list of list, and each of the list will consist of values from these columns separately. So there will be a list which will consist of values from this column. There will be a second list which will consist of values from this column, and so on. So for that we will use table.toColumns function. So table two columns function, and we will close the bracket here, and we got this list here which consists of lists And let's say this first list consists of values from the first column, second list consists of values from the second column, third list consists of the values from the third column, and so on. Now what we will do, we will create a table so that the first row will consist of these values, null and sector. The second row will consist of these values, null and company. So we will create a table out of each of these lists. So for that we will use table from rows function. So table from rows function here, and we will close the bracket here, and we got this as a result. Right, so we have dates in the first column and metrics in the second column. Now what we will do, we will fill down the first column. So we will right mouse click here, fill down here. So we have filled down the dates here and covered those extra nulls here. And then what we will do, we will combine these two columns together so that we get a single column as our row headers. Right, so for that we will select these two columns, go to transform tab and merge columns. Right, and as our separator, let's say we use a pipe symbol here. So we will use a pipe here, and let's say our new column name is merged. So let's click on OK, and we have got this as a result. So we have a column which consists of only a single header row values, right? So we have fixed our part one here. So we have fixed our headers here. Now it is the time to fix the second table here, which will comprise of the values for the output table. So what we will do, we will come here again and insert a step, and we will refer to custom one step, and we will refer to the second table. So for that we will use one as our index here, and we get the second table from that list. Right, now what we have to do, so this first column was sector, second column was company, and third column was symbol. Right, sector, company, symbol. And if we see the merged column, we have in this column the values as sector, company, symbol. The fourth column was open prices for 14th of December. So again here we have the fourth column as 14th of December and open prices. Right, so we have got column names fixed here. Now is the time to fix this particular table. So what we will do, we will fill down the first column here again. So we will fill down, right. Then the next step will be to remove the nulls from this column 2. So what we will do, we will filter out empty cells from this uh, column, and then we get this as our result here, right. Next step is to rename each of these columns here. So here this should be actually symbol here. So let's say we name this to symbol, right. So this is sector, actually my mistake. So this is sector, this is company, this is symbol, and this is, let's say, wait, why we are doing it manually, right? Why are we doing it manually? We should not do it manually because we already have them here, right? So we will use these values from this particular table, and we will rename these columns accordingly. So after doing it manually, what do we realize? That this is the function table.rename columns function is used by Power Query, and we will try to follow and try to replicate the same structure to do it dynamically, right? So what it is doing basically, it is taking the column that we have to rename as a text here, and it is creating a list that in which the first element is the column that we are trying to rename, and the second element in the list is that what will be the new name for that column. Again, this is a list of list, right? This is a list of list in which, let's say, this is the first list in which we are trying to give the column that has the column name that has to be replaced, and it has to be replaced with what name. Second column values are here, again the column that we are trying to replace and the column name with which we have to replace, and so on. So we have to create a list of a list. So for that, what we will have to get, we will have to get the column names of this table, and we already have the new column names here in this merged column step. So what we will do, we will create another step and refer to, let's say, renamed columns table, sorry, filtered rows table. So filtered rows table, and we will try to get the list of column names in this table. And for getting the list of column names, which function can we use here? We can use table column names function here. So table dot column names, and we will get a list of column names here from this table. So this is the list of column names that we wish to rename. And what will be the list of column names to which we want to rename? This is the list, right? So what we will do, we will create another step, and now we will refer to merge step, right? Merged column step, and we got this column, and from this we will select the merged column, and we get this as a list again. Now we have these two lists, right? So what was the format that was followed here? We will try to replicate this. So this was the format here, list of a list. So we have got two separate lists. Now we have to combine, create a list for this value with this value, right? We have to create a combination for this value with this value. So this is what we have to do. So for that, what we can do, we can use list.zip function. So how we can use that? So for that, let's create another step, and let's use list.zip function here. So list zip, and we have to give a list again here. So list, which consists of again those two lists. So custom 4. So custom 4 was column names that we have to replace, and custom 5 contains the new column names, right? So we will group them together, and we get this list. And what does it contain? This is a list which contains against several lists, and each of the list contains that pair, that okay, the first element, the first value in this list is the column to be renamed, and the second item in this list is the new column name. Again, if we check out the second list here, it again contains the same format here. Again, the third list contains the same format here. So same arrangement here. So that's how we have got this list of list, and that is what was asked for inside table.rename columns function. So we could replace this complete part with this step, right? So what we will do, we will copy this, we will create another step, paste that, and in place of this complete part, we will use custom 6 step, custom 6. So we got this as a result here, right? All these column names are renamed now. And now what we can do, we can remove this particular step, right? So we could remove this, and our result is dynamic now. And now what we can do, we can unpivot our table. So we will select these three columns, right mouse click, and unpivot other columns. So now we have this as a result. And what we can do, we can rename these as well. So let's say we rename value to price, because this is the price, right? And this is the attribute. And we also want to fix these column names. We don't want them to contain this pipe symbol here. So what we can do here, we can transform the column names here so that we remove this pipe symbol from them. So what we can do, we can create another step and use table transform column names, right? And we wish to transform each of the column names such that each of them doesn't contain that pipe symbol. Or what we can say, that we want to trim them. So text.trim start, right? We want to trim the column name, so we will use underscore for that. And which character do we want to trim? We want to trim the pipe symbol here, so we will use pipe symbol here and close the brackets. So we have fixed our column names here. And the last step that we have to do is, we have to split the values in this attribute column into two separate columns, dates and metric. So what we will do, we will select this column, go to transform, and split column by delimiter. And in this, we will give pipe symbol as our delimiter here. And we will have this pipe symbol at the first instance only. So we will select leftmost delimiter, click on OK, and we have got this as a result. And what we can do at the previous step, we could rename this attribute dot one to date, and here attribute dot two to metric, right? Metric here. So we have got this here. And let's apply this change type step by ourselves. So what we will do, again, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. We will fix this to date. Again, this is fine. And this will be, let's say, currency. So we will change this. And we have now finally got a result. by applying these many steps, right? We could have easily clubbed few of these intermediate steps into a single step, but we have done it into several different steps, right? So let's see, let's again go back to the first step and let's again see this complete result that we have generated step by step. So first of all, we got this loaded here in Power Query, right? This table. Then what we did, we split the input table into a list of two tables. So we separated the header rows and we separated the rest of the rows that we had in this table. Then what we did, we transformed the header rows. So what is the transformation that we carried out? We first of all created a table like this, and then we filled down the values. Then we merged those two columns to get a single column so that we have only a single row as header values, right? Then what we did, we transformed the second table from this list. So we will now transform the second table. So what we did here, first of all, we filled down the first column. Then we filtered out nulls from the second column. Then what we did, we basically renamed the columns, right? We renamed the columns, so we got the column names that we wish to replace. Then we got a list of new column names which we already had in merged column step, right, as a single row. Okay. Then we group them together, right, so that we have this kind of structure in which we have a list of a list, and each of the list contains that pair, old column name and new column name. So we have this list of a list structure, and then we use that structure inside table.rename columns step so that we could rename all the columns dynamically. Then finally what we did, we unpivoted our columns. So we unpivoted all the other columns apart from these first three columns, and then we fixed the column names as well so that they do not contain any extra pipe symbol. So we fixed them as well. And then what we did, we split this merged column, right, attribute column which had these merged values into two different columns. So we have this here, and this was date column, this was metric column, and then finally what we did, we changed the type here. So we fixed the type here, right? So this is the solution without using table.transpose function. And let's load this to Excel. So let's load this to a new worksheet. Okay, and we got this as a result here. So that's it for this video, and I hope you like the idea of dealing with the header separately and rest of the data separately. That way, we don't have to transpose the complete table. We are in a way transposing only the header rows, right? We are only transposing the header rows and fixing them, and then we are dynamically renaming the columns. So that was the main theme in this video. Let me know in the comment section your feedback on this, that how you would apply this concept, this idea into your work, or any suggestions, any alternate solutions that you have in the comment section. So that's it for this video, and stay tuned for more such videos in future. Thank you.